Think your Jeep is done at 200,000 miles? Hold that thought for a second, because the miles are not the real problem. With the right habits, Wranglers, Grand Cherokees, Gladiators, and older XJs roll past 300,000 miles and keep going. Some carefully maintained Wranglers even push beyond 400,000 miles on the original engine and drivetrain, and that should instantly change how you think. So let's walk through 13 Jeep habits pulled from real service intervals, Jeep dealer guidance, and what long-term owners actually do. Stay until the end, because tip 13 is the one most owners forget. Number 1, oil changes that keep engines alive. Most Jeep engines do not die from bad engineering. They die from lazy oil habits, and it usually happens quietly for years. The Pentastar Phi 6, newer Hurricane engines, HEMI V8s, and the old 4.0 inline 6 can run huge mileage when oil stays fresh. Many newer Jeeps list 7,500 to 10,000 miles in the manual for ideal highway use, and that assumes gentle driving, stock tires, and light loads. Real Jeep life often counts as severe duty. Off-roading, towing, summer traffic, or heavy 33 to 35-inch tires with stock gearing pushes. Mechanics to recommend 5,000 to 6,000 miles on synthetic, or 3,000 to 4,000 miles on conventional, especially on older engines. Oil cools parts, stops metal from grinding metal, and carries dirt into the filter. When additives break down, sludge builds, and cam lobes, lifters, and timing chains take the hit. Long-term owners report 4.0 engines crossing 250,000 miles, and one forum owner wrote, "I change at 4K, and the motor still feels new at 260,000. DIY takes 30 to 45 minutes, often $40 to $70, versus $4,000 to $6,000 for an engine. Number 2, battery terminals that do not strand you. A Jeep can feel perfect all week, then barely click one morning, and that moment usually starts at the battery. Corrosion on the posts looks like fuzzy white or blue crust, and it acts like insulation. Current gets choked off to the starter and the computers, so a battery that seems fine can still act dead. A modern Jeep battery with proper cold cranking amps can cost a few $100s installed, and a tow bill makes it worse. The annoying part is that prevention can cost less than lunch, like a $5 wire brush. The routine is simple. Disconnect the negative cable first, then the positive, scrub posts and terminals until metal looks bright, reinstall positive first, then negative. A thin layer of dielectric grease or battery protectant spray slows future buildup. Stable voltage matters because modern Jeeps run mini modules. Low voltage can trigger random dash lights, Uconnect glitches, and odd sensor errors long before the battery fully quits. One mechanic put it cleanly, your Jeep loves stable voltage more than fancy parts. If this is helping you already, give this video some real support right now. Hit subscribe today, tap the like button, and drop a quick comment with your Jeep model and mileage, because I actually read those. Number 3, coolant that prevents quiet damage. Overheating rarely arrives out of nowhere. It gets built slowly by old coolant that stopped doing its job. Coolant does more than control temperature. It carries corrosion inhibitors that protect aluminum parts like cylinder heads, radiators, heater cores, and water pump passages. As years pass, additives break down, the fluid turns more acidic, and parts start getting eaten from the inside. Most manufacturers and coolant brands point to about 5 years or 50,000 to 100,000 miles as an outer limit under good conditions. For a Jeep you plan to keep, a safer long-term rhythm is coolant every 5 years or 50,000 to 60,000 miles, whichever comes first. When coolant stays too long, water pump seals can leak or squeal, radiators corrode at lower seams, heater cores clog and lose heat, and repeated overheating can damage head gaskets. Off-road rigs run hotter, and mud or bugs packed into the radiator can push a weak system over the edge. Healthy coolant usually looks bright in the correct OAT or HOAT shade for your model year. Sludgy brown fluid with floating particles is the warning sign you do not ignore. Number 4, transmission fluid. Without the drama, transmissions usually do not fail in one loud moment. They fade through heat and dirty fluid until shifting feels wrong. Whether your Jeep has a classic automatic, the modern 8-speed, or a CVT in certain smaller models, replacement costs tend to land in the four-figure range. That makes transmission care one of the smartest places to stay consistent. Fluid service gets controversial because aggressive power flushing on a neglected high-mileage unit can knock sludge loose and clog delicate valves. Many independent Jeep specialists avoid that risk and prefer a careful drain and fill around 60,000 miles or closer to 50,000 miles if the Jeep tows or spends weekends on rocks and sand. Inside the transmission, clutch packs shed tiny particles into the fluid. A little helps friction surface grip. Too much clogs passages and leads to delayed shifts, harsh engagement, or slip. Partial changes refresh additives without shocking the system. The one rule that never changes is fluid choice. Use Jeep-approved fluid, not a random universal blend, because friction behavior and temperature performance are tied to that exact recipe. A transmission builder said it bluntly, correct fluid beats any miracle additive. If you find our tips helpful, remember to hit that subscribe button to watch our next Jeep video. Number 5. Brake fluid that keeps brakes feeling normal. Brakes can feel strong until they suddenly feel soft, and old brake fluid is a common reason. Brake fluid absorbs moisture from the air over time. That moisture lowers the boiling point and encourages internal rust in calipers, brake lines, and ABS components. Even low-mileage Jeeps deal with this because time alone changes the fluid. Many experts and manufacturers recommend brake fluid changes every 3 to 5 years, regardless of mileage. That matters even more for Jeeps that tow-run mountain passes or see off-road use where braking heat climbs quickly. You can spot trouble early: a spongy pedal, longer stopping distance, a brake warning light, or fluid that looks dark brown instead of light amber, all suggest it is overdue. A BS valve corrosion can turn into a big repair bill, so a fluid flush is cheap protection. A proper flush pushes fresh fluid through each caliper or wheel cylinder until old fluid is fully out. Done right, that helps ABS pumps stay healthy and keeps calipers sliding correctly. One advisor explained it in plain talk: you change pads when you hear them, but brake fluid protects everything before it gets noisy. Number 6. Power steering fluid. When your Jeep uses it. Some Jeeps use electric power steering and have no fluid to change. Many older Wranglers, Cherokees, and certain trims still use hydraulic steering, and that system lives on clean fluid. Hydraulic power steering fluid carries heat away and suspends fine metal particles from the pump and steering gear. Larger tires and lots of low-speed turning make the fluid work harder, so it darkens and oxidizes over time, often around 50,000 to 70,000 miles. When fluid gets tired, many drivers hear a high-pitched whine during turns or feel heavier steering effort. People often assume the pump failed, but the smarter first step is fluid condition and level. Checking the reservoir once or twice a year keeps you ahead of the problem. Healthy fluid looks relatively clear, and levels should sit within the hot or cold marks, depending on temperature. Black, burned-smelling fluid signals it is time for a full change. Older manuals sometimes allowed ATF in steering systems, but many shops prefer modern fluids that match Jeep compatibility for seals and pump behavior. One shop owner's rule is simple: if it whines, we check fluid first before selling a pump. Number 7. Differential and transfer case fluid, and that protects 4x4 parts. Your engine makes power, but your axles and transfer case have to survive it. Those parts quietly take abuse, especially in snow, mud, and rocks. In differentials, gear oil lubricates ring and pinion gears, bearings, and contact surfaces. It also holds tiny metal particles that build up as gears wear in. That is why the first change around 30,000 miles matters, because it clears out break-in material. After that, smart intervals usually land between 30,000 to 60,000 miles, depending on towing, off-road use, and how often you do water crossings. Water and mud can contaminate fluid through seals, and milky oil is a clear sign something is wrong. Changing diff fluid is also a chance to inspect the drain plug magnet. A little fuzz is normal. Metal chunks are not normal and can warn you early. The transfer case needs its own fluid too because it lubricates chains, gears, and clutches in full-time systems. Low or burnt fluid can stretch chains and cause clunks or binding when shifting between 2H, 4H, and 4L. Use the correct gear oil weight, proper GL rating, and friction modifier where limited slip requires it. Number 8, air filters that stop dust from becoming engine wear. Engines inhale a lot of air, and Jeeps inhale a lot of dust. That makes the air filter a big deal, even though it looks like a small part. A clogged air filter makes the engine work harder to pull air in. That can mean worse fuel economy, dull throttle response, and extra carbon buildup, and it can also let abrasive particles sneak through if the filter is damaged or overused. Many drivers replace engine air filters around 12,000 to 15,000 miles under normal conditions. Off-road and rural driving changes the game because one dry weekend on dirt roads can load a filter fast. Checking the filter at every oil change makes more sense for trail rigs than waiting for a calendar. The good news is the job is easy on most Jeeps. You open the airbox, pull the filter, and slide a new one in. It usually takes minutes and costs around $20 to $40, which is small money for clean air. Clean filtration helps maintain compression and stable oil consumption over the long haul. One trail guy put it bluntly, dust inside cylinders never leaves, and that is why a clean filter stays on the priority list. Number 9, spark plugs that do not create bigger problems. Spark plugs do a simple job, but they do it thousands of times a minute. When they drift out of spec, the effects spread fast. Many modern Jeeps use long-life iridium plugs rated around 100,000 miles in normal service. Some engines call for changes closer to 60,000 miles, and that number is worth following because misfires can become expensive. The first rule is part matching. Use OEM spec plugs with the same brand and part number the engine came with. Substitutes can change heat range or electrode design and cause misfires, poor mileage, or stubborn check engine lights that waste your time. The second rule is edge. A plug can seize in an aluminum head after years, even if mileage is low, which makes a simple tune-up turn into a bad afternoon. As plugs wear, the gap widens and coils work harder to fire. Misfires send unburned fuel into the exhaust and can overheat catalytic converters, which cost far more than a set of plugs. Many techs pull one plug at inspection mileage to check wear, then replace the set with proper torque. Number 10, battery aging that causes weird electronics. Even when a Jeep still starts, a tired battery can cause weird behavior. That surprises people because they expect batteries to be either fine or dead. Most automotive batteries last about 3 to 5 years under normal use. Climate and driving patterns can push that a little, but after that window, failure risk rises, and modern Jeeps are picky about voltage stability. A simple at-home check helps. Let the Jeep sit overnight, then measure resting voltage at the terminals in the morning. A healthy, fully charged battery should read about 12.4 to 12.6 volts. A reading near 12.0 volts or lower suggests a tired battery, especially if cold starts feel slower. Replacing a battery on your schedule usually costs less than replacing it after a tow from a trailhead or parking lot. Low voltage can also trigger phantom codes, Uconnect glitches, and random dash warnings, which can send you chasing the wrong problem. Parts stores often offer free battery tests that show cold cranking amps and state of health. Doing that once a year after year 3 gives you facts instead of guesswork. A dealership tech said it plainly, half the computer complaints disappear after a battery replacement. Number 11, serpentine belts that keep everything spinning. One serpentine belt can run your alternator, AC, power steering pump on hydraulic systems, and sometimes the water pump. When that belt fails, several systems fail at once. If the belt snaps or jumps off, the alternator stops charging, coolant circulation can stop on some engines, and steering effort can jump on hydraulic setups. That is why belt condition matters long before it looks bad. Guidelines often call for belt inspection around 60,000 miles. with the replacement commonly somewhere around 80,000 to 100,000 miles. Heat, oil leaks, mud, and water crossings can shorten belt life, especially on Jeeps that live outdoors and on trails. A quick check with the engine off tells you a lot. Look for cracks along the ribs, missing chunks, or a shiny glazed surface that suggests slip. Any of those signs mean the belt is past its best days. Some Wrangler belt routing makes a spare belt worth carrying, especially for remote trips. Knowing the routing path ahead of time keeps you from guessing on the side of a trail. An off-road instructor said it simply, a spare belt turns a breakdown into a delay. Number 12. Timing belts and timing chains that you respect. Timing parts keep pistons and valves moving in sync. When timing goes wrong, engines can get damaged fast. Some Jeep engines use a timing belt, which has a clear replacement window, often around 60,000 to 100,000 miles. Missing that window risks belt failure, and on interference designs, a snapped belt can bend valves and damage pistons. That is not a drive-at-home situation. Other engines use a timing chain, and chains get called lifetime. Real life is different because chain life depends on oil quality and change intervals. Dirty oil and sludge wear the chain guides and tensioners. That wear can show up as rattling on cold start or timing errors that the computer detects. Some Pentastar engines gained a reputation for timing issues, mainly when owners stretched oil intervals or skipped changes. Technicians opening those engines often find worn guides and dark oil in spotty maintenance cases. For belt engines, many owners replace the belt, tensioner, and often the water pump in the same job because labor overlaps. One engine builder said it bluntly, belts fail when schedules get ignored, chains fail when oil gets ignored. Number 13, quality parts and Jeep-specific problems. You fix early. If you have ever felt a front end shake after a bump, you already know why this matters. Jeep owners call the violent shake death wobble, and it usually shows up when worn steering or suspension parts meet certain speeds and road inputs. The pattern shows up again and again. People spend thousands on lift kits, wheel and tire packages, and cosmetic add-ons, then save money on the parts that actually locate the front axle. Cheap track bars, ball joints, tie rod ends, bushings, and sensors can develop play faster, and that play can trigger shaking. Oversized tires and unbalanced wheels can amplify the problem. Some Jeeps received updated steering dampers at different times, but experienced techs treat the damper as a mask, not a cure. The real fix is tightening or replacing the worn joint or bushing that allows movement. Quality parts matter here because tolerances matter. OEM parts or reputable brands tend to hold alignment and resist slop longer, and lifted, heavier rigs need that strength even more. One mechanic summed it up clearly, a healthy Wrangler might shimmy once, a worn Wrangler keeps wobbling until you fix the loose part. If you found these tips helpful, be sure to hit that subscribe button as we're sharing insider tips to help you cut repair costs and keep your car running like new.